I found that when I watch the Miyazaki movies, that there is nobody who captures my spirituality as well as he does. It's very interesting and just vicious. Right? There is something going on in his movies that is very interesting. So, for instance, Mononoke is discussing not only an answer to Disney's simplistic notion of Mowgli, the jungle boy who's raised by wolves, and as soon as he sees people, realizes that he's one of them, and the way in which the moral life in nature is simplified and romanticized and turned into kitsch. Right, it's disgusting in the Disney movie, and he answers to this. You see, he's replaced by Mononoke, this wolf girl who was raised by wolves and who is fierce and dangerous and who cannot be socialized because she cannot be tamed. Mm-hmm. Cannot be part of human society. And you see, human society, it's something that is very, very complicated. You see people extracting resources and destroying nature. But the purpose is not to be evil, but to be able to have a life that is free from, for instance, oppression and violence, and to curb death and disease. And you basically see this conflict which cannot be resolved in a certain way. You see this moment when nature is turned into a garden and it loses most of what it actually is, when humans no longer are submitting to life and death in nature. And to these questions, there is no easy answer. So he just turns it into something that is being observed as a journey that happens, and that happens with a certain degree of inevitability. And the nice thing about all his movies is there's a certain main character, and it's the same in all movies. It's this little girl that is basically Heidi, and I suspect that happened because when he did field work for working on the Heidi movies, back then the Heidi animations, before he did his own movies, he traveled to Switzerland and Southeastern Europe and the Adriatic and so on, and got an idea about a certain aesthetic and a certain way of life that informed his future thinking. And Heidi has a very interesting relationship to herself and to the world. There is nothing that she takes for herself. She is in a way fearless because she is committed to a service, to a greater whole. Basically, she is completely committed to serving God. And it's not an institutionalized God. It has nothing to do with the Roman Catholic Church or something like this. But in some sense, Heidi is an embodiment of the spirit of European Protestantism. Mm-hmm. It's this idea of a being that is completely perfect and pure. And it's not a feminist vision, because she is not a girl boss or something like this. She is the justification for the men in the audience to protect her, to build the civilization around her that makes her possible. Right? So she is not just the sacrifice of Jesus, who is innocent and therefore nailed to the cross. She is not being sacrificed. She is being protected by everybody around her who recognizes that she is sacred, and there are enough around her to see that. Right? So that's a very interesting perspective. There's a certain notion of innocence. And this notion of innocence is not universal. It's not in all cultures, right? Hitler wasn't innocent. His idea of Germany was not that there is an innocence that is being protected. There was a predator that was going to triumph.
Yeah.
And it's also something that is not at the core of every religion. There are many religions which don't care about innocence. They might care about increasing the status of something, right? And that's a very interesting notion that is quite unique, and I'm not claiming it's the optimal one. It's just a particular kind of aesthetic, which I think makes Miyazaki into the most relevant Protestant philosopher today.